Hello everyone, this is Epic Speakerman speaking. In this video, I will tell you why he is now the most important SKIBIDI scientist and what creepy things he has created in his lab. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, put a like, and put a bell to not miss new videos on the channel. For a long time, SKIBIDI's technology has kept up with the progress of agents. A whole team of top-notch scientists and technologists worked on the improvement of Cameraman titanium, but they have only one toilet responsible for all the developments, and that is SKIBIDI scientist. For a long time, he was in the shadows, and we only saw the results of his experiments, but in the 60th episode, he is back. His first appearance was recorded in episode 16, in which he did not have the structure he has now. The video shows the outside of his laboratory, but believe me, under its walls there are still 100 long corridors for terrible experiments. After a long time in episode 30, we see him again. It is not difficult to understand that he has acquired new improvements, but it is hard to say that this toilet is the main SKIBIDI's. His next appearance happened very soon in the 32nd episode. He controlled the infestation of Titan Speakerman parasites, and after the successful completion of the task, he disappeared without a trace. Many wondered where he disappeared. But there was almost no information. I found out some interesting things about the scientist. If you remember, after the appearance of TV Mance in the city also appeared a new secret SKIBIDI's. Many people call him a scout. On his assignment, he stole a lens to create a universal defense against their radiation. Yes, but this lens did not help because the Titan TV man destroyed it with his super strong study. This is the whole secret. They carefully guard the scientist and inform him. Thus already in the 46th episode appeared SKIBIDI Vacuum, which by means of terrible experiments was deprived of sight and hearing, so that the Titan's weapons did not constitute a threat to him. That is, you want to say that all this time while the Titans fought against their enemies, the scientists were in the laboratory and developed new toilets. This explains why, in episode 49, there was a SKIBIDI garbage man who had parts of his toilet from the defeated agents. But more interestingly, episode 60. It gives a lot of insight into how their society works. At the beginning of this video, we see how a new type of toilet, namely Astro Cleansig man for his mistakes and let him free the Titan. This is very strange, because before we thought that G-Man is more important than all his allies, but it turns out that this is far from true. A moment later appears Scientist. He received new pieces of armor and became bigger. And what is more interesting, he chased Astro. Does this tell us that he is in charge? Undoubtedly, yes. The power that he has is absolutely limitless. In fact, on him depends the whole progress of SKIBIDI. The Titans will have to prepare for hard times. Science, which is not just his job to support his own army, but basically his life is the smartest toilet head among all the toilet heads that exist, and our professor is clearly not some servant who fulfills an order dropped from above. Episode 60 showed that he puts himself far above what he is, and maybe he really is. He may have also created scientists to continue, to create SKIBIDI and other technologies for small toilets, because it would be very hard for a big scientist to do it, or given knowledge to ordinary toilets to make new technologies and help the scientist himself, because it would be faster to complete the technology. The power of G-Man has fallen considerably after what happened, and as long as the scientist thinks he needs him, he will control the army of SKIBIDI. But if he wants to replace him, he can do it safely, because he takes the best technologies and put them to himself. I think he also once planned to fight the enemies, as well as could expect betrayal, which could completely affect the technologies that he created, because only he knows what they consist of, how to fix and change them. Although we, for all series of the series, rarely saw him, now we will be able to see how he fights very often, only we do not know what will happen if he dies. Suddenly there are no those who can in the future to repair, and then after the death of the scientist, we will wait for the death of G-Man. It turns out that the end may be soon, because no one can help. In the 30th series, we see his robotic claw, and he is in a black metal alloy toilet, which tells us about his uniqueness and exceptional abilities. For example, the strongest SKIBIDIs also use black metal for their toilets. But what is his main power? We know that G-Man is the supreme commander of almost all toilets. But even he realizes that ordinary toilets do not have a huge power and agents easily flush them. Realizing that he cannot cope with the high-tech development of agents using only primitive toilets, the scientist created an underground laboratory. For the first time we see it in 16, where we can clearly see the upper room of this laboratory and even notice the scientist himself before his improvements. At the end of this episode, we see the first, namely the initial version of SKIBIDI Spider, which in the future will serve as a prototype for the creation of giants. But what exactly gives us this episode? From the appearance of the building of the laboratory, I was able to determine its location in the city. It is located in the very west. G-Man tried to place this lab as far away from the cameramans as possible so that the new developments would be safe. But this is only the top part of the lab, and what hides the underground lab, this is where the most brutal experiments on the exhausted agents are conducted. In the 30th episode, when the scientist himself appears, we can notice that his latest development parasite comes out of his mouth and takes over the mind of the cameraman. But believe me, this is not an isolated case, because in the corner of this room we can realize that there are other tortured agents who are waiting for him too. Don't forget to give a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the bell so you don't miss a video. SKIBIDI Scientist is no exception, and his image is taken from the character of Dr. Isaac Kleiner. But what we know about him, he is a scientific genius, and one of the key scientists in the City of Half-Life. He is the main antagonist in the game, and plays an important role in the plot. Outwardly, Dr. Kleiner is a fat man with white hair, but his true past and age remains a secret. He gives the impression of a cold-blooded and somewhat manipulative man whose actions are motivated by his horrific scientific research. He plays an important role in developing technology that allows him to maintain control over the city and its inhabitants. But his methods and goals can be controversial and questionable. It's all very similar to SKIBIDI the Scientist, who is the main driver of the progress of the toilets. It's hard to call the scientist a coward because he once even appeared on the battlefield where one of the strongest characters was, namely Titan. Yes, in the new series we already see how often he appears, and that his attacks with abilities are very strong. He has changed a lot since the 32nd series. So if he entered the battle, for a while he will be without updates. But it's hard to say because G-Man was able to, even after the battle, to update before the big battle in the 57th series, but the scientist has reached the battlefield. We haven't seen most of his abilities, so we're unlikely to see any noticeable improvements. Same with the Titans, they think they can easily handle him in his current state. But I don't think so, due to the fact that he started the attack himself for a reason. Well, that's the end of the video. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.